First of all, I want to ask you a question. Tell me, you got a ship in the sea at the time when they had sails and oarsmen. What drives that ship? The wind or the sails? Anybody got any ideas? What? The wind. Ah. Anyone else have an idea? Okay. We have to remember in our own lives that in actual fact the sails, because what you do, wind changes direction all the time, like we have in our own lives. In our lives, things change all the time. You have the Kabbalistic concept that running forward and backwards, running forwards and backwards, the flashing of the angels, and it really our lives, that you never know what to expect. You have to expect the unexpected. And therefore the wind itself does change direction. That's why there's a big problem with wind power, because even there it has to self-adjust in the direction the wind is blowing. So because of that, it's the person who's guiding the sails, so the wind will hit the sails so they can move forward. So even though I thought that was the answer in the beginning and then figured it out that it has to be that, anyway, it had to fit in with the talk that I'm giving tonight. So it's us going through life, however you're partially right. And that is, wind is ruach, spirit, the soul, the whole force in nature. So that also drives us. So we have to learn how to adjust the way we're going. Now, I want to share with you a very, very beautiful thing that I heard the other day, that in Japan, when an expensive vase breaks, what do? So they put it together again, but with gold. With gold. And therefore it's still a beautiful piece, even though you can see the breaks, but the gold makes it shine. Now, this is something that I'd like to connect to our own lives, and that is, many of us have scars and wounds, outside or in the heart, and we have to carry on living. So how do we do it? We put all the pieces together with gold. We learn how to wear those wounds, those scars. We learn how to live with them. And it's very interesting. Obviously in the Torah, in the Bible, you have every source, everything, all the information you want in the world. So I turn to an interesting thing with Moses. Moses, he stands at the end, he knows he's going, and he gives this fantastically long speech. And he starts to spell out what the future is going to be like. Oh, you'll settle in the land and you'll beat the enemy, etc. And then he maps out that they're going to go in to the diaspora. They're going to be murdered, chased. It's going to be very, very difficult for them to live. And he gives all of this, and he has only one message to give them. And he said, choose life. Now, each one of us must think of this very, very carefully, because we can concentrate on our depression. We can make our problem, however big it is, the center of our lives, and then we go into self-destruction. Whereas, if we learn to wear that and say, I survived, because many of you know stories, and I know a lot of stories, because I've been around slightly longer than you, that when a tragedy seems to hit, it turns out to the best thing that happened. One loses a job, they lose their money, there's a war, they have to change country, and they find that they're suddenly in a better life. It can take time, providing one thing: you don't wear those scars and go around, and whoever speaks to you, you tell them, oh, look what happened to me. Forget about it. And it's very interesting in the Tanya, that's the famous Lubavitch rabbi who was a advisor to kings and presidents all over the world, many, many Jewish and non-Jewish followers. And he says in Tanya, which is a terrific guide in life, he said, each thought that we have is a reflection of our inner self, who we are and what we can be. So if we concentrate on our current problem, yes, it's difficult, can't reduce it. Somebody dies, you have to mourn. You have a challenge, you have to handle that challenge, but choose life. Choose life, because you have to live anyway. And you have to ask yourself, why am I alive? It's a very simple question. And if you keep asking that, say, look, tragedies happen all over the world for thousands of years to the Jewish people, but also to other nations as well. One difference. How come all of the nations in the world, and you know, Mark Twain to a lot of other people, they said, this is a miracle. How could it happen that they survived? They're all over the world. They're absorbed in other nations. How did they survive? It's a matter of space. Now, if you exist, then you take up space. It could be a rock, a stone, a flower, a tree, a bird, an animal, or any one of us. We take up space. Therefore, we exist. If we exist, we have our space. Now, most people, or everyone, wants to guard that space. You're thinking of something very deeply, and somebody comes with something else. Look, I've got no room in my mind for this. Now, we say that, but if you think about it, there's a limited space. Everybody has their space. So what do married couples do? Everybody's protecting their space. They've got to have it. So what they do is the man or the woman says, or they say to each other, look, if I'm going to give up space, I'd rather have you in my space. And if you would rather have me in your space. However, where the relationship starts to go wrong is when either partner doesn't recognize that the other one does need a certain amount of their own space. I was talking to one of my, never comes to a talk, but watches the videos, and she spoke to me on the phone today, and she said to me that she's finished with her boyfriend. I mean, I've been advising her to. What was he doing? He was so excited about her, he was possessive. He never gave her any space at all. He was jealous of her friends, he was jealous of the family, he wanted her all to himself. In other words, and he loved her, and she loved him, but she had no space. It drove her mad. And I said, look, if he's like this now, after you got married, the marriage cannot last. Because if you can't learn to allow people into your space, but give other people space, this is in any relationship, anything you're doing. Now, getting back to how the Israelites survived, the Jewish people survived, while the nations of the world, I mean, we're talking about Egypt and Rome, and we're talking about, I mean, in fact, I had a friend of mine visit Rome. It never happened to me, though I've been there many, many times. And he said to someone there, look, tell me, where are the original Romans living? Where are they? They said, well, the only original Romans we have here are the Jews. Now, imagine that. In Egypt, you go there, unfortunately, most of the Jews were kicked out or killed. But they were the only ones that were left. There are no such thing as the original Egyptians, because everybody got absorbed into one another. So what they were doing, everything was space and existence. They wanted to take more space. They wanted to conquer more countries. They wanted to expand. That's how they built the empires. But it wasn't life. Life was not as important as the space, the possessions. Now, if we can get rid of that burden of our own space and decide, hey, wait a minute, I want to live. Yeah, I've got that problem there. I'm going to put it in its right perspective. Yes, it's serious. I have to handle it. But I can't spend 100% of my time handling it. I need 5%, I need 10%. How much more can you put into it? Think about it. You can't force reality. It takes time. So you deal with that on the one side and you say the other 90%, I am going to live. I will carry on my life. Because it could end badly and it could end good. But you can't affect it. It's like driving in the traffic. You can get mad in a serious traffic jam, but it won't affect the traffic. You make yourself ill. If you like, you can even get a heart attack. And it happens to people, they get themselves so worked up. But it doesn't help. So you have to say, right, I've got these circumstances, I have to live, and that is survival. The Jewish people followed what Moses said. Choose life. And then we remove everything from the center stage. Now, I want to move on with this thought, but connect it to a new research, it's fairly new, into feelings and emotions. Now, scientists and physicists especially have a terrible problem, for example, dealing with quarks. It seems to react to us. They seem to be only there when we go to find it. It reacts and moves to the other side. It has its own personality. And in fact, we know from the Kabbalah, everything in the universe, everything, absolutely everything, birds and trees and flowers and, I won't, the list takes too long to go through, but all these wonders of nature and what was the blessing we got in this world, all of them have feelings, all of them have a sense, all of them get hurt, and all of them respond. Now listen to this thought very, very carefully. We actually are fortunate that we are tuned on the right level. So we hear each other, but we can't hear a flower when you cut it. You can't understand what trees are saying to each other. As far as we're concerned, they're not saying anything. There's no conversation, there's no dialogue. And yet, according to the Kabbalah, everything has a dialogue. That's why I said King Solomon understood what the birds were saying, understood when the animals were talking. Maybe, and we know, not on the same level as we talk. We would, in fact, it says we would go out of our minds if we could hear them. Because first of all, we wouldn't be able to do anything. We'd be frightened. You step on a grass, what's happened? Now, how does it relate to us? First of all, everything in the universe is there for a reason, even if we don't necessarily understand. In medicine, we have a son who is really advanced in research on drugs, but natural. He told me stories of how, for example, there is a very, very expensive medicine that's used with lung cancer. Very, very expensive, and helps to overcome the pain. How's it made? Why is it expensive? Of course, they make a lot of money, and so they prefer to sell it to fewer people. But it's also difficult to obtain, because in South America there is trees, but sort of here and there, scattered around. I've got the name of the tree. On that tree, there is a spider a special one lives on that tree. The spider has certain other insects that live on the spider. Now, anybody who's studied physics and biology knows that that happens. They extract from that the medicine. How they discovered it. How they discovered it was a miracle. And each one has their own stories. But we know that there's nothing in this world that does not have a purpose. And we can give many, many stories, but in medicine you can see it today. You can extract from all sorts of sources that you never believed was possible. Now, there's a famous story of King David, and he turned around and he said, listen, Hashem, I don't know why you need spiders. Why do you need spiders? I mean, I can understand a lot of other things. Beautiful, the spider's not beautiful, and it's quite annoying. Why do you need it? And why do you need to have mosquitoes? Explain to me. So what happened? He says, I'll show you. You know, he had this fight, you know the story of it, that with King Saul was chasing him all over the place, and you know, he wanted to kill him because he saw he knew he was a threat. And so David went and hid in a cave. And they came around looking at the caves, and a whole lot of spiders came and started to weave across the entrance of the cobwebs. So, they said, oh no, nobody could be in there because the cobweb is all intact, and he was inside, right? And another time, when he wanted to just show the king he had an opportunity to kill him and he didn't, he was protected. There was the king had, then they had giants. They had giants in those days, and we know from fossils that that actually is true. And so it was lying and had his knees up. So King David goes underneath like a tunnel, goes there and cuts off part of the king's garment. Now he wants to go back and the legs are flat. What does he do? And suddenly a whole lot of mosquitoes came and stung him, and he quickly lifted up his legs and he went out. Now, this is a story we are told what happened. But that's not the point. The point of the story is you will be surprised. Now, how does that relate to us? How does it relate to what I've told you till now? It's like this. Everything is self-adjusting. Everything reacts to your thoughts. Take, for example, Galileo. Galileo decided that maths is the answer to everything. You don't need anything else. That's what he said. And in maths, it's self-adjusting. And we know that when you go into calculations in the gematria, it's mind-boggling what you can come up with. Everything and anything is connected to maths in some form or other. But of course it was all worked out. And the interesting thing, most formulas come back to basic numbers, like 26, where we discussed it, which represents the name of God. Now, how did he come to this? How? He got a download. It came into his head. The maths are self-adjusting. So what happened was, it adjusted the way he saw it. But of course he saw the truth. It's like Einstein. Interestingly enough, in his early years, he wasn't very good in maths. His Einstein theory, he had to get help from colleagues on the mathematical formulas. Then he was a brilliant man, and he mastered it. But he had a download. Can you imagine Einstein's theory of relativity? I can give it to you in simple terms. But you know that all of his calculations, they could send men to the moon. And they knew exactly what would happen, and they could calculate exactly according to Einstein's theory. Now you tell me where he got it from. You can't be clever and sit down and calculate it. There's no way. You have to have a download. It comes into your mind. So we find that we have to react to what comes in our mind. Whatever it is, we have to take it seriously. And that's what the Tanya meant. He said, in our minds, thoughts are only a reflection of what we are and what we can be. And when you take quarks, or in quantum theory, those people who know what I'm talking about, in quantum theory you find that things only exist when they're there. Now, I want you to accept what I'm going to say, because it will surprise you, and I think I mentioned it once before. What was the first thing that was created? What was the first thing that was created in this world? Anyone know? I'm talking about the Bible. What was the first thing created? So let me surprise you. We have to go to the Aramaic. And we learn something very interesting. It says, in the beginning, created. I haven't come to the third word yet. Bereshit, in the beginning. Bara, created. Bereshit, shit in Aramaic means 6. So the first thing that was created was 6. What does that mean? The 6 is the 6 directions, fine. The 6 also means, we call it sixth sense, which is also powerful and has a inner meaning. But we also have the 6 elements in physics that keeps everything going. It's a mathematical formulas that if it was slightly lower or slightly higher, the world could not exist, the world could not continue. Somebody obviously is sitting at the dials, and we know who it is. And there's a long list of what that 6 means. So in the beginning, in order for everything to happen, the whole universe to operate, that 6 had to be created. Not the number 6, but the 6. At the same time, we know it's 6 days. And 6, you can go along on and think through the various examples. But that's not for now. What was the second thing that was created? Anyone know? Well, I'll give you the same. I'm going to surprise you. What does the word say? Bereshit, in the beginning. Bara, created. Elohim. Now we don't say God, we say Hashem. Was in the beginning, was created Elohim. So you say, wait a minute. God was created in the beginning, so when was the beginning, or where is the beginning? We don't know. It doesn't tell us. It doesn't tell us that it was so many thousands of years ago. It doesn't tell us it's so many billions or trillion years ago. It just said, right in the beginning, he created 6. Right in the beginning, he created Elohim. It doesn't say he created, it says Elohim. Hashem was created. You know, I avoid the word God. You remember why? Because God are idols. Gods are idols. So we don't want to call God the same name as we use for idols. So we say Hashem, the name, and we have different aspects. I want to share with you, before I come back to going to that a little bit deeper. We know there are 42 names of God. All of you are used to hearing it now. It's become part of you. For many of you, it's your theme song. And we got literally today hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people are using it to relax. I got 3 different emails today, and they said, well, I'm doing it 2-3 times a day every time I need to relax or to think. And they don't necessarily understand the words. But it's the power within that Anabakoach, which is 42. 42 aspects of God. People make the mistake of saying names. But Hashem is the name. One of them is without any limits in time, space, or motion. Another name, which is not the first one, but it's used a little bit later, is the Yud K Vav K. We're not allowed to pronounce the letters, and it's known as Yahweh, which is not a pronunciation of the right thing, but it means I have been, I am, and I will be. When Moses asked, well, who should I say sent me? He says, that's my name. But it's not a name. It is the whole spirit of what we connect with. It is not a Nobo Daddy in the sky. It is a force there. That force is emotions and feelings. It's there. We can feel the power sometimes. Something happens and we get into that feeling. And because Elohim created everything and is in everything and he is everything, so everything also has that feeling and reacts. We don't see it. A baby in a mother's womb feels pain. A lot of people do not realize it. A baby in a mother's womb hears everything that's going on and feels the emotions of the parents. We are told that something which is very difficult to accept, that when a baby is aborted, I'm talking about naturally, the baby doesn't survive 1 month, 2 months, 3 months. We are told that that soul decided to come down to these parents, but when it discovered it had made a mistake, the soul leaves. Now, this is very difficult to wrap our heads around that thought, but what I like about the thought is this. There's an action and there's reaction. The way we behave with our families, the way we behave in front of the children, born or not born, actually affects them and their lives. So that is why whenever I congratulate somebody who's just had a baby, I say to them, you must thank the baby and of course the big boss for changing your lives. You are different now. You are not the same, because now you have the responsibility of leaving aside your weaknesses, your negative aspects, and only concentrate on the good. Because if you don't concentrate on the good, you are actually creating the child that you don't want to have. And we're talking soon as the mother gets pregnant. And that is why people who are surprised later on, I have no relationship with my son or my daughter. We fight all the time. Or doesn't talk to me. Something that child picked up, not necessarily your fault, because the child could have been born in time of war, it could have been when you were going through great difficulties, and they feel that reaction, but then it becomes part of them. And I'll prove it to you. There was a research done 30 years ago. What happens to the children of those people who survived the Shoah? What happens to them? They actually have dreams and suffer as if they had been in the concentration camps themselves. And I had a very, very close friend of mine from Germany whose brother eventually had to be locked up, put away in a mental asylum, because he would actually attack a policeman thinking the man was a Nazi soldier. That's what he saw. because the policemen in Europe have guns. So he saw this and he attacked him. Why? Because it's embedded inside. The children felt the emotions and felt everything, even though the parents don't always like to tell their story till much later on. But the children have that story inside. So therefore we have to think very, very carefully. We can in fact also affect water. For the good or for the bad, for our good or for bad. Because water reacts to emotions. There's a Japanese professor who did a research on water reaction to emotions. And it's remarkable. I've got a book at home with all the pictures that he took, all the photographs, and there's an actual reaction. Water reacts to prayer. But water also acts to war and strife. Why is water so pure up in the mountains? Yes, you can give an explanation, but in actual fact, it's calm there. It responds to nature, because water also has a feeling. Now, this is not something up in the sky, though it is. Why is it important to us? It is important to us that if we make our mind to do something, nature responds and helps us to do it. Anything and everything, providing we're not negative. And many times, Alice knows it only too well, that it is dangerous to say anything negative. In other words, oh, that's not going to happen, or somebody's going to get hurt, or they do. That's the whole point. It's almost like inviting trouble on yourself or inviting good on yourself. Now, many of us have these experiences but don't really understand why. Now, but if we really drove that home in our minds and take the pain that we have right now, or we did have, difficult to forget, but only make it a small part of your life. One has to live. Now, there are many stories that I can tell you, and I've told you a lot of stories. And an interesting thing was this. In Europe, there was a doctor who couldn't get any clients. He didn't have a lot of patients. So he used to sit in a coffee shop, or he would go around. One day he went to the local rabbi and he said, I don't know what to do. I can't get patients. So he turned to him and said, look, people never reach out to a doctor that has time. Because if the doctor has time, it means not so good. Nobody thinks much of him. What you've got to do is take your case and run from house to house, place to place. Everybody has got to see you running around. Just run. And you'll see that people will contact you. Oh, this man is so busy with so many clients. And when somebody wants to appointment, only in emergency you see them now. Otherwise, make them wait a week, even though you've got nothing to do. Well, he started to get clients. And about a month later, man hadn't come back to report what had happened. And he sees him running down the street. And he got so used to answering people the way he was told to answer. He said, I've got no time for you, I've got to run and save somebody. What happened was he talked himself into that, and then it happened. People who sit in their office and say, I do not have clients, go out and get them. And if somebody contacts you, you've got nothing else to do, you say, well, I'm busy, but I can fit you in next Wednesday. Fit them in half an hour. In other words, it's an attitude that you have to broadcast to others. But what are you doing at the same time? Broadcasting it to yourself. And that is a very, very powerful thing. So we have to learn to connect with what we call nature. We have to learn to connect with everything around us in order to be able to make something of our lives. And then everything falls into place. The impossible is always possible. And I've seen it in my life so many times. There are always opportunities. I remember people saying to me, what's going to happen with Brexit? I said, it's only good. You will see there'll be a boom like you never saw before. And of course, all those negative people destroyed their own businesses thinking they can't carry on. Individuals who came to me for advice, I explained to them. And I say, simply tell me, you're selling goods now, you're exporting to Europe. How much duty can they put on it? He says, another 5%. I said, if you now gave discounts of 5%, would you start losing money? He looked at me and he says, I never thought of it that way. Forget about it. You look at the moment how you're living. Otherwise, you attract negativity. Be careful, don't attract negativity. Now, following up on the Tanya, he said, well, those thoughts are a reflection. Now, what you've got to do is to give the right reflection to the other people you deal with. So first of all, you can't go around in old clothes or jeans with tears in them. They think you've got no money. You can't go around not dressed nicely. You can't go around not being clean. And you can't go around without a big smile on your face, even though you have a lot of pain inside. Because by showing to the outside world, people want to deal with you. And you have to think of this. How many times it's happened to you, to me? We talk to somebody and we see they've got a grouchy look on their face. They're sad, or they're in a mood, or they don't want to talk to me. Or somebody's walking in a supermarket or in a shopping center and suddenly doesn't notice your kid and bangs into the kid. What do immediately? You get angry. But maybe he had bad news in his family. Maybe he's coming from the doctor and something bad had happened. You have to look at that. It's very difficult. At the first there's a shock. And unfortunately in this world, we're living in a world of shocks. And also great surprises. And the shocks are always there because it's running and moving away. Running and moving away. Our life is changing all the time. It either happens to us or somebody close to us. And not only in personal tragedies, it could be other things around. Fear of war and all sorts of things. But the war didn't happen until it starts. Of course, you have to use your brains and go to another country which is safe if you think there's any danger. But you don't sort of bury yourself inside and give a face. That is why it's interesting. In Hebrew, and in quite a number of other languages, the word for face is plural. Panim, plural. What does that mean? Let's go back to the Tanya, what he has to say about this. And by the way, the origin is from Kabbalah, because that's what it's all about. And he said, look, you have an inner face and an outer face. You can reveal to yourself what that inner face is, but never show everybody else the outer face. Don't show them what you truly think of them if it's bad. Don't show them you don't trust them. Many, many times in my life, I saved myself from a situation by being friendly with the enemy. Never showing that I didn't trust him, though I knew, but I had to get out of it. I had to try and save my money, or a client's money. So I pretended, and I pretended, come. I had, with a whole group of clients, they had invested money with a stockbroker who says, I'm giving you 10% a month. And they used to collect. They used to bring the money. And of course now they borrowed from friends, mortgaged their houses, everything to bring him more and more money. And they came to ask my advice. When I heard the story, I said, wait a minute, but it's now nearly a year we're getting 10% a month. I said, that means 10 months. He's giving you back all your capital. No. I said, look, let me meet him and let me see if I can save your money. I convinced them that it's gone. And I gave them so many examples of how a bucket shop works. I mean, there's a famous one, the biggest one in the world, which is unfortunate that billions of dollars were lost, and he was giving dividends for many, many, many years. What did I do? At that time, I was in the banking business. So I called him up and I said, you know, I heard about this fantastic investment scheme you've got. It's incredible. I'm sure our clients would be interested. But you know, we're a bank and we have to keep to the law. So what I want you to do is we'll set up a special trust account. If you've dealt with any cash, forget about it. All has to be done through there, but you will actually get the money into your account. You can trade the way you've been trading, and they'll make money, you'll make money. I'm happy to recommend you. And I carried on and I invited him to come to Switzerland to come and see and to talk. And of course, he went out of his mind because he could get millions now. And these people altogether, I counted up maybe $700,000. It's a lot of money, but it's lots of small people. And I sat with him, and then gradually I said, listen, any cash dealings, obviously it's going to be investigated because we have to do due diligence. So give all those people back their money because now you're going to get very, very big money. He started to give the money back. I worked on him for 5 months and I started to feed him with a little bit of money. And he saw, well, you know, we got a client here and I made meetings for him and each one was talking about large. I got cooperation from some of the clients. When he'd given everything back, or almost everything, I said, our investigations show that we can't deal with you. Now you say that's not fair, that's not honest. But there are many, many times where you must not show that face because this way you can save yourself or save other people. Mao Zedong, who is sure he hasn't got a good reputation, but there are a few things you could learn from him. He said, if you want to destroy your enemy, first become his friend. It's tu panim. On the other hand, you can't be two-faced. That's also not nice. When you're dealing with somebody else and all because I did already tell you the principle of the people you can trust and who are good, of those people who want to receive in order to give. Whether it's their knowledge, their money, their time, their love, they want to receive in order that they give. Those are the only ones you can trust. All the other people you have to be very, very careful with. But at the same time, if you're sitting with somebody, you know, you've got a chance to rebuild their life. You've got a chance you meet somebody that you've got a chance to marry or get close to. So what is the tendency? To start telling them over a cup of coffee and pouring out their heart and all their problems. The guy runs a mile. What does he want to hear this? He wants to know how she thinks, what's her thoughts, what's her beliefs, what dreams she has in life, not nightmares, dreams. And so therefore he walks away. You want to go get a job and you start telling about the bad experiences you had. What's going to happen? Nobody wants to be with you. Oh, they're sympathetic. They seem to be sympathetic. But how long can they take it for? So what we've got to do, if we want to get married, we want somebody, we have to dress up nicely, we have to have a smile, we have to have a good few jokes, and we have to just give a great, happy atmosphere. And not have two faces, the one inside that hurts and the one outside that wants to gain love and respect and many advantages in life. So that's what we learn from it. And it's very, very important that we think of this all of the time. Now, these 42 and 72 aspects of Hashem that I've been talking about all the time are very important to us. Why? They're made up of good things, bad things, tragedies. Everything in the world, every reaction, every bit of knowledge you can have are different colors. You look at a prism, you have a prism on the lower level in this world has 42 different shades of color. And on a higher level you have 72 different shades of color. The color could be dark black or it could be beautiful blue. It could be red, danger. It could be green, relaxed and calm. All the different colors and different shades are there. But the interesting thing is, there's only one light shining through the prism and giving you this. So that gives you the idea of the different aspects. We are the same. We are asked to live. We are in the image of Hashem. The trouble is with a lot of people, they forget that. And they say they create their Hashem or the Ein Sof as as if Hashem is in their image. So they've got different thoughts, different ways, different religions, different ways of acting. Try to create God in their image, and that's a big mistake. Because a lot of people who are religious inside and don't tolerate other people's way of praying or not praying or connecting. Why? Because they've created God in their image, and it's just not right. But the same thing happens because if we're talking about the light that runs everything, we have a soul inside, so we also have the light, and we have our own prism of colors. So we also generate different colors. And when you look at it this way, then you start to see everything entirely different. Entirely different. Our soul is like the big soul. Our brain is like the big brain. And we are created in that image, so we don't have to create our beliefs in our own image. There are facts, and we live with them on different level that we as an individual can, and the color that we have chosen. Of course, never choose black, because that's not good. White is far better because it can have many, many colors inside. Now, so when we put all of that together, we come to some very interesting stories in our lives and how we can learn to survive and create our own life. Think deeply, think carefully. The problem that you have in your life, and for many of us, it seems to be the end of the world. But people carry on living. People carry on living. The question is, are you going to live? After all, sometimes one must walk away. You can't do anything. You try your best. But it's still better than having very serious terminal illnesses. And therefore you say, I have to thank for what I have, and I have to thank for what I don't have. Now, we've got to be happy though. So we have to move away from that. A great example in our world that we see, and how people change with time. You take, for example, Churchill was a complete failure in English. Oh, he knew a lot of English. And yet he became the greatest writer that England has almost ever had. English on such a high level. You can have Einstein, who couldn't get a job even as a teacher. What did he become? I want to share with you this story before we get on to the reflection, connection, mind, direction of Shema. When I went out to Singapore, I was interviewed by someone. and he assigned 3 days. So he told me the following story. He said, when I was a little boy, at the age of 11, I was already pickpocketing my friends and other people in the street. My adrenaline run, it was a lot of fun, and I would do pickpocketing. Many times he was arrested, many times he got into serious trouble. He was thrown out of school after school. The parents did not know what to do with this boy. He had a good education, a good family. How come he's taken this, he's doing this? So they decided at the age of 15, he hadn't stopped and he'd been in jail a few times. Correction center. He was sent to a family in Canada who had a farm. And they said, well, he can't pickpocket cows. What's he going to do there? And yet he would go into the village and pickpocket. He could not resist, and that's what he did. In their eyes, a complete failure. But he actually was a member of street gangs. He knew how to fight. He knew how to do it. He had a lot of street sense. Everybody gave up on him. What's he going to be? He'll end up his life either murdered or murdering. Anyway, he carries on with the story. He got very friendly with the Chinese in Chinatown, liked their food, got jobs here and there, and he got on well with them. And he started to learn a bit of Chinese. And then his Chinese came better. One day, he was in a big Chinese store, which had been robbed many, many times, and 2 guys walk in, face covered, with guns, and they're there to attack and to steal. He saw red, flew into them, and really beat them to pulp. Because he was well trained, beat them to pulp. Of course, he became a hero in Chinatown. Everybody, and of course, they liked him anyway, but here he was a hero. Along comes a man called Chiang Kai-shek, and he had plans to overthrow the emperor and the government in China. And he just got to power, and he went around the world visiting Chinatowns. And he was told the story because he was a legend. So he said to him, I want you to organize my bodyguards. We'll give you about 250 people, and also I want you to watch out for my generals and in the army to make sure from the inside I'm secure. And he got the job. He went to China. He was his head bodyguard there, and he was known as Two-Gun Cohen. The man sitting in front of me was Two-Gun Cohen. Now, he was very powerful there, a lot of connections. And because Chiang Kai-shek trusted him, came to the declaration of the State of Israel. And they had to go first through the Security Council. The Security Council, China, Russia, America, had the right to veto in 1948. They knew that China was going to veto. So somebody in Canada, who happened to be very, very close friends, in fact, he went to school with Ben-Gurion originally in Europe. Says, they were talking, he says, what should we do? So he said, tell me, who is the representative of China at the United Nations on the Security Council? He gave him a name. He says, I got him the job. I trained him. He went to see him, and China did not veto that decision. That was the same Two-Gun Cohen, the same one who was a complete mess in his life. Because parents do not know which way a child will go. A child can be very kind, very good, very clever, and turn out to be a terrorist or a murderer. You see so many cases. We're living in a world today that life hasn't changed, it's just this better communication. So we see on social media, we also see in the newspapers, and we see how many cases where the murderer looks such a nice guy. Or the one who committed a crime, a major crime, beat up his wife, beat up his children. Such a nice guy. He looked nice, a good background, many times a good job. And you don't know what's going to turn out either way. You have to accept that life will change. And each one is a separate soul. So we come back to giving space. We have to learn to give our children space, our partner in life space, our friends space. You go visit your friend too often, or you love each other, or you take over each other's existence and don't let the wife or the husband develop and give them space, then you're destroying the relationship. Children must have space even if you feel they're bad. Why? Because the education that you're giving them is not for them. And how many people say, look, I and my grandfather, we had a law firm and your grandfather ran this and I do now and you're going to as well. But he's not built for it. You destroy him. Give him space. If he can't go to school, give him space. If you don't give him space, he becomes depressed. If he becomes depressed, he's only in existence within his own space. He's not choosing life. The biggest thing that we have to tell our children and everybody we're dealing with, choose life. And I'm going to end off with a midrash, a beautiful little story. And I can only get you to understand it when I told you that all nature reacts. He says right in the beginning, the tree was very happy. And the tree says, big boss, I'm very happy that you put me here. I mean, I've got my fruit, I stand tall, I've got the wind and I've got the sun. It's a great existence. And I know I can carry on living forever. And then suddenly he noticed the metals in the ground. And he saw that they could make iron. Started to get scared. He says, they can make an axe and chop me down. It's dangerous. So he got the following answer. It's entirely up to you. Don't let them make a handle out of your wood. Because that axe cannot be used without a handle. What's behind it? We must be careful in our lives not to give that handle. By giving that handle, you are helping whoever wants to do you harm to do you harm. They play with you. They do the things that you don't like in order to annoy you or get you upset, or do the things that you don't want to do. But you gave them a handle. So every move you make, be very, very careful. Do not give them a handle. And that really sums up the whole of the story. Now, what I want to do, I promised you, and I can only do a short one because we ran out of time once again. However, I did say I'm going to talk to you about the mother of all meditations, the Shema. Now, I must tell you that an enormous number of non-Jews and Jews actually say this prayer. And I want to share a few thoughts with you here. It starts off with the word Shema. Many people have heard that word. Shema means listen, hear. And we know that when the Bible was given on Mount Sinai, It was actually the voices that they heard. They were told, see the voices. They saw the voices. Strange. They saw the voices. What were the voices? In 70 different languages. So you can really say Shema, not as powerful, in a language which is not Hebrew, because it can affect you personally. Now, those people who know a bit of Hebrew know that heaven is called Shemayim. Shema Yam. Hear the water. Hear the sea. So that first word is very powerful because it's made up of the first letter, which is Sh, which is Ish, fire. And then you got Mayim, which is water. So you got fire, water, heaven, which is fire, and water. Now that fire is the light that's shining through the prism. The prism in the great soul, and the light from the great soul, and we with our own soul through our own prism. So when we close our eyes with this reflection, connection, mind direction, we have to imagine fire shining on the water, hovering above the water. Water makes you relax. Water makes you feel good. Water gives you life. Always remember that water gives you life. Fire also gives you life because we can cook with it. We can get heated up with it. We need the heaters and the fire to warm us up in weather like this, and even less cold. So those are two very important elements that we have to appreciate. But it says we must hear, but it also means we have to obey. Obey the basic rules of relationships with each other. That's more important than sitting down to pray and sitting down and making God in your image. The real thing is between each other. That's more than anything else. And we know the first temple was destroyed because they were making idols, and they had it was the latest technology, and all the nations around the world felt, hey, the Jews make it, it's the best. And it was mainly because they were sort of playing two games. There were idols and at the same time worshipping in the temple. The temple was destroyed. But 70 years later it was built. But what destroyed the next one was hatred between man and his fellow. Jealousy, you're going into my space. And what happened was thousands of years didn't get it back. Why? Because in this world, to have harmony, and the harmony is everything we know in the world. The planets carry on moving right, the water moves right, electricity moves from right to left. Everything, all energy in our bodies move from right to left. Everything is calm. Everything's in its place. So you need to be there as well. You need to be there as well. And how are you there as well? Harmony. Making sure that you love each person. Why? If you look at a person, however stupid you think he is, he's got 1 trillion cells in his brain like you have. If you have doubts about yourself, say, wait a minute, but that guy's got 1 trillion. I just have to use the cells in my brain. It's the same number. Einstein didn't have any more than me, but he used them. So we have to use them. So that's how we have to look at each other. We also have to look, if everybody was made in Hashem's image, then we have to respect them. This is the image. I can't get angry with that person. However justified your anger seems to be, you have to try to look through their eyes. You don't have to agree with them. You have to try to understand them. Because they really, honestly believe they're right. People do not lie. People believe so. You get angry with them. You fight them, whether in court or out of court. And yet they believe they are right. Because they're living on a different level. They're tuned differently. You can't hear them. So we don't hear, we don't listen to other people, we just listen to our own voices. So that's the Shema. Now when it says Yisrael, very interesting. Jacob, in the beginning, was called Yaakov. Jacob, that was the level of all living creatures, everything all on one level. Then they started to call him Yaakov, which then took him on the Ruach, the spiritual level. And then when he got to the highest level, where he could conquer man and, it says, Hashem, what does it mean? To be able to accept the good and the bad. To accept that only good is done for us, we just simply don't understand. It hurts. But what is pain there for? Pain is there to warn you and to tell you, you've got trouble, you better go to the dentist, doctor, or what, you've got to do something about it. Or something's fallen on your foot. That's what pain is. So pain is good. There are people who don't have pain and they're in serious trouble. They can die because they don't even know something's wrong. So pain is good. All types of pain is good because it has a cleansing effect. It means you're in the wrong place. You have to move on. If you're bored or not happy, it means you're in the wrong place. You can try, but many things you can't fix. So choose life. Build your life. I say, well, that's not working out. I'm going to now concentrate on making something else work out. Just think of the people who went through the Shoah. How many people escaped? They lost their wives. They lost their children. They lost their husbands. They were dead, gassed or burnt. And you go around, who have been statistically the most successful people in our modern world after the Shoah? Those people who during the war said they're going to survive and I am going to live. They had the tragedy around them, but they are not going to be sad for too long. They worked on living. They built fantastic businesses, careers, in medicine, in physics, in science. Go look through the names. A very large percentage went through those tragedies, and you can't have worse tragedies than that, and built new families, and built new lives. And that's what we have to do ourselves, build new lives. So we learn this in Shema. And Yisrael, when his name was changed and he'd gone through this, I mean, look at all the trouble he had in his life. So many people now try to kill him or get the better of him. His father-in-law and his brother, I mean, and they wanted to kill him. So look what he went through. But when he won that battle, it was called, from now on you're called Israel. Israel is on the neshama level, on the soul level. Every one of us, Jew or non-Jew, has that capability of living on the soul level, but we have to fight and pull ourselves up and keep choosing life. And then it goes on, Yud-Kei, Vav-Kei, we have to concentrate on the fact that it is the whole universe. It's Ein Sof without any end, time, space and motion. We have to feel it. We have to internalize it. Many people, if they really want to internalize, take 10 minutes on this, twice a day. It's as powerful, more powerful than Ana B'Koach. And everyone is given a tune that belongs to their soul. That's why I chose Ana B'Koach, and it affects all of you. Those people who listen, those people who have on my inner circle and get the videos, they know what that means and the feeling and comfort you get, because that belongs to your soul. The other thing that belongs to your soul is this Shema Yisrael, because it is part of you, and it ends up with Echad, one. One. But what does the one mean? Oh, it's not, there's no other God besides. I mean, that's very nice, but if you're thinking what really is Hashem, then the one means All of nature, everything together is one. One. All the people in our lives, good or bad, it's all one. It's all part of the same thing. And we have to absorb it and concentrate on that words. And then it comes to love. And you have to love your neighbor, but you have to love Hashem with all your heart, your soul, and your might. It's very difficult to absorb this idea. So we are told, if you want to learn how to love your family, love as you should do and are loved by Hashem. And if you want to learn how to love Hashem, then think of the love that you have in your family. And love is reciprocal. You give, it reflects back on you. And it reflects. You feel good, and then you give more love. And then you get more love. And that is in everything, whether it's between individuals or in the actual things that you do. You have to love it. Because everything in nature you have to love. But don't do to your family what a lot of people do to flowers. They love flowers and they cut them. They love certain foods and they eat them. Don't cut members of the family. Don't cut them down to size. Never have that attitude. And don't eat them alive. People are consumed by one another. Let them have their thoughts. Let them live in their own universe. We live in ours, which is only good and which is only love. And that is the message of Shema Yisrael. Now, those people who would allow me another few minutes, I want us to close our eyes. I got the text here, English transliterated and in Hebrew. And I think that if each one of you have it in front of you, and I am going to say it very, very slowly, like Anna Bukowski, you don't have to understand the word, but you have to have the feeling. You get the feeling, it makes something of your lives. Now, because this is holy, if I give it to you, it must not be torn, or you give it back to me. You know, best thing is to put it into a book, and you know it's guarded well. But any of you who doubt it, don't take it. But anybody who wants to try it, in the recording, I'm going to send you a fuller recording of Shema on my inner circle, with the music in the background, and you will be able to absorb it, and it will be great to have it in front of you. Now, I want you to, first of all, I'm going to read it, you look at it, and you scan the letters. You don't have to, you scan them, because each letter has a power on its own. I've given you some explanation, not all of it. It has a power on its own. You can scan, and your soul will absorb it. And everyone has a soul. Jewish, not Jewish, whatever color, whatever race, everybody has a soul. So let's use it. And let your eyes just scan it while I read it. And then I want you to close your eyes and concentrate on what I have to say. I'll read it first, and then we'll do a short one after that. Just follow it. Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. Vahavta et Hashem Elokecha. V'chol levavecha, v'chol nafshecha, v'chol mo'adecha. Hear, O Israel, that the element of Israel inside of you, and everybody has that potential element, whatever he is. Hashem is our master, and Hashem is one. And you should love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your might. But it's talking to you about your relationships with others, because you're not loving God. Everybody's made in the image. So they're made in an image, you have to love them. You have to love everyone. And you give that love. What am I doing standing here? I'm only doing it out of love. No other reason. And we help thousands of people through our books and through the videos, etc. Only out of love. Why? Because everybody, whatever level they are made in the image of God. Even the ones that we don't like so much what they're doing. But they're made in that image. They have the potential, but they're not using it. So please close your eyes. And I will say it as it should. And you'll be getting a recording with the music in the background. Shema Israel Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad ואהבת את השם אלוקיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך. Now keep your eyes closed and imagine there's a fire hovering about a massive sea, and then move it higher and higher into space, and imagine that fire envelops everything and all the worlds. Try to concentrate on this image in your mind, and then think of it with love. Feel the love. And we say, Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad ואהבת את השם אלוקיך בכל לבבך בכל נפשך בכל מאודיך. Keep this in your mind, keep that image, relax completely and absorb it and feel the love. Every morning when you get up and every evening when you go to bed, you say this with concentration, and you will find slowly it will change your life, because you become part of life and part of everything that I've told you in today's talk. Thank you. Just think of the possibilities. Fantastical stories showing how it all works in real life. Join the thousands who learnt the secrets that changed their lives. Start this unique experience. Read a chapter from my new book. Think, stand up, and walk tall. Go to my website and enjoy reading.